So, there's been some dissension in the House of Windsor of late. Prince Charles has been at the receiving end of some negative PR. Now, when Charles initially made the comment about the poor handling of the immigration Rwanda situation by the UK government, it occurred to me that soon enough there would be some pushback. Sure enough, soon a story revealed that Prince Charles had received about $3 million in cash, and this cash was given to Charles in a suitcase and shopping bags. So, super shady. And soon enough, the Sovereign Grant Report was released. Now, for those of you who don't know what the Sovereign Grant Report is, it essentially gives a detailed accounting of the taxpayer funds that are used to cover the expenses of the British royal family. And this recent report showed an enormous increase in taxpayer funds that have been distributed towards the BRF. Now, you may wonder, how is the cost increasing when they're down 3 working members? Prince Philip is no longer with us, and of course, Harry and Meghan left. Well, when we look into the reports, we see an enormous amount of private traveling, use of private jets, helicopters, and planes that account for a large amount of the money. Also, we see that William and Kate's failed Caribbean tour resulted in a hefty bill for the UK taxpayers. That's notwithstanding the massive bill for the Caribbean nations who hosted the Cambridges. Now, also revealed was the insane amount of money that went towards the Cambridges and Charles and Camilla attending the 007 red carpet premiere event. Now, why is the cost that high? Especially since the palace and the location of the event were so close by. I believe it's under 15 minutes. No one will ever know. But of course, while the UK taxpayers are experiencing a cost of living crisis, the cost to the taxpayers has been exponentially increased in the past year towards the British royal family. So, bad press all around for Charles and the family. And of course, they had to resort to using the good old royal scapegoat, that is Meghan. Now, of course, about a week ago, they had leaked that the investigation, and I use investigation in quotes, into bullying allegations against Meghan, the results of that investigation would not be publicly released. And I don't need to remind you of the global fleecing that they got, as we saw in the global hashtag royal family lied. In some countries, it trended for like 2 days. But, of course, they deemed to regurgitate that story again in an effort to have people focus on Meghan and the investigation, and trying to spin the narrative that they're trying to keep tensions between the Sussexes and the family to a minimum. So it's done to protect Meghan, which, if you have been paying attention, you know that's complete BS, because they've never done anything to protect that woman, like, ever. So, of course, Charles not only saw fit to use Meghan as a distraction, he even added Archie and Lily into the mix. I mean, how low do you have to be to use your grandchildren for positive PR? Now, it was recently revealed by aides of Clarence House that Charles had an emotionally stirring reunion with his granddaughter and grandson. And Peter Hunt even commented on how Harry and Meghan, if they had been the ones to reveal the meeting of Charles and his grandchildren to the press, that they would have been vilified, saying that they're using Archie and Lily and Charles for clout, for their Netflix contract or Netflix show, the usual nonsense. But when Charles decides to use his grandchildren for PR, he's deemed as the sweet, loving grandfather, which, honestly, I find to be complete bullshit. Let's not forget that Charles was the one that pulled the security for Harry, Meghan, and Archie, even though he knew that Harry had received death threats for daring to marry a biracial woman and procreating with her. Even though Charles knew that Harry's location had been leaked, and without security, he and his young family would be sitting ducks. He pulled it nonetheless and did not take Harry's phone calls. So, if Charles really cared, he would have reinstated the security, not in the same way, because obviously Harry and Meghan are no longer working royals, but he would have put himself out to provide safer security options for his son and his grandchildren to visit the UK more often so that he could see them. So that's point one. Also, let's not forget that Charles and his mistress turned wife constantly use publicly funded airplanes and jets to peruse around the planet on a weekly basis. If Charles really cared to see his granddaughter, who was a year when she first saw him, he could have easily flown to Cali to see them. Harry and Meghan live in California, USA, not on Mars. It's completely doable. Also, even though I don't doubt that there is a very icy tension between Harry and his father, I do not doubt that Harry would in any way have prevented Charles from coming to see the kids if he really expressed a desire to do so. So, Charles using this reunion as some sort of positive PR to make it seem like he's some loving grandfather is just nonsense. Now, Anna on Twitter made a very interesting observation when comparing the cost analysis for the Sussexes and Cambridges as it relates to the Sovereign Grant Report. Now, in 2018, 2019, and 2020, the average cost provided to be distributed amongst the Sussexes and Cambridges was $5 million, $5 and $5.6. Now, Harry and Meghan left in March of 2020. In 2020, it was $5.6 million to be shared between the Sussexes and the Cambridges. Now, in 2021 and 2022, the cost is $4.5 million and $4.4 respectively. So, Harry and Meghan are no longer there. The Cambridges have received $4.4 million. So the fact that the numbers suggest that Harry and Meghan only received about $1 million, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, respectively, goes against the grain of the narrative that the royalists tried to push, that Harry and Meghan were receiving large amounts of taxpayers' money, because they really weren't. They're no longer there, and Kate and William are receiving 4.4 and 4.5. That's a hefty chunk of change. Now, of course, they have to pay for staff, Kensington Palace and whatnot, so obviously there would be a higher amount to be allocated to them. But again, the figures tells a different story than the narratives created by the British media. Also, remember, they made a big stink about Harry and Meghan renovating the dilapidated Frogmore Cottage when William and Kate had already had 3 taxpayer-funded homes. That the renovation costs for those homes were exponentially higher than the measly $1 or $2 million that Harry and Meghan had put into the renovation cost of Frogmore Cottage. So, as we can see, the cost analysis and the narratives created around all things Sussex, again, just really doesn't add up. It's all about Meghan. We talked about the way that Meghan had been vilified for everything that she's done. And remember, there were those in the press that had talked about her being Hollywood royalty and they don't want Hollywood, But now you have William and Kate and Charles and Camilla attending 2 Hollywood type events at significant cost to the taxpayers. So again, it wasn't the Hollywood that they had an issue with, and it's not the cost of extravagant homes that they had a problem with. They had a problem with Meghan, who they continue to use as a scapegoat. If you really think about it, before Harry married Meghan, no one in the UK media had the desire to provide itemized lists of the cost of Harry's traveling expenses, the cost of his security, the cost of his home quarters. But as soon as he married Meghan, that became an issue. But no one's talking about these things, and they're trying to distract from the cash suitcase scandal, and they're trying to distract from the fact that Andy is likely to be named as a man of interest for the FBI. But let's use Meghan and Harry and their children as a distraction. Crazy. Also, a little bit of a sidebar, but I don't know if you guys realized, a couple, maybe a week or 2 ago, we see William in a bright-ass vest and baseball cap, out and about with the poor, trying to raise awareness. And initially we're told that it was impromptu and he didn't bring cameramen and he was just there, doing a good deed, trying to raise awareness. And even though in an extended photo we saw that there was indeed a cameraman there, only to find out a week later that it was a big production to paint William as the ever-loving Duke who cares about the poor and poverty-stricken of the UK. And at the same time, I believe Kate had visited some sort of shelter for mothers or something to do with the poor. And simultaneously, they were in the process of securing their 4th taxpayer-funded property. And the way the UK press tried to say that, they were just doing it incognito, which we found out was a lie. And then when we found out about the 4th home, they tried to spin it as, they're being so magnanimous because this 4th taxpayer-funded home will not have a living staff as the previous 3 did. So it's really a downgrade for them. Yeah, they're getting an extra home at the expense of the taxpayers, and yeah, it experienced some massive renovation costs to get it to the point where it is, but it's a downgrade. So yeah, well done for William and Kate. The hypocrisy abounds in the House of Windsor, and as frustrating as it can be, I also seek solace in the fact that there will be a day when the antics of William and Kate and the rest of the people within that institution will come to light in a very public and humiliating way. If this scandal with Charles has taught us anything, is that once one person in that institution makes a wrong move or a perceived wrong move, criticizing and critiquing certain people in the press or criticizing and critiquing the government, stories and things that have been hidden from the past suddenly reappears to teach them a lesson. And I don't doubt that there will be a day that the press that William and Kate and Camilla and Charles love to cozy up to will turn on them, just as they did on Harry. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, hit that notification bell.